Hi, and welcome to Verse Virtual Monthly Reading, featuring this month David Baker and Paige Starzinger and a small open mic. So happy to see you, and we hope that you'll come by. Um, this reading it's still going on, so you're welcome to come. Only you're not going to see this, are you, if you're not here, or next month. I'm going to introduce our first reader, and that is David Baker. David Baker is a poet, critic, editor, and educator. He was born in Maine, grew up in Missouri, and has lived in Ohio since 1983. He's the author of many books of poetry, recently Whale Fall from Norton, Swift, also from Norton, as well as I Walk to the Water, forthcoming in 2026. His books of prose about poetry include Show Me Your Environment on Poetry, Poets, and Poems, University of Michigan, and Radiant Lear, Essays on Lyric Poetry from Grey Wolf. An edited volume, Collected Poems of Stanley Plumley, is forthcoming in 2025 from Norton. Take it away.
Thanks, Robbi. Can I get my mic on, everybody? Yes, okay. Well, thank you for coming to be with Robbi and Paige and all of us. It's a very busy day and a very busy week, and you could be doing a lot of things. So thank you for this. Paige and I were going to do this reading along with a third poet, a fellow named Terry Hummer, T.R. Hummer, who at the last minute had a little bit of a medical adventure and can't be here today. And since his regrets, he's fine. It's nothing dire, and he'll be fine in a couple of more days. But he's not going to be able to read. So I'm going to start with one of Terry's poems, just so he'll be with us one way or the other. Terry is, oh my God, one of my dearest, dearest friends. We first met in 1979 when we were students in school, and we've been pals ever since. This was in Salt Lake City, and then we lived just a few miles from each other in central Ohio. And now I'm fixing to move to the Hudson Valley.
Oh,
Um, yeah, Paige and I together, and Terry's about 2 hours down the road or down the river from that as well. So this is one of Terry's poems. I don't know if you guys know his poems. This is one of the finest, most restless poets in America, maybe about 20 books. Um, and this is just a little poem of his about California. Our host is, and our event is centered in Southern California. This was a poem Terry wrote just a few years ago, dedicated to Peter Everwine, if you know that great, great poet, who spent a lot of time in Fresno, though he was born in Detroit, I think it was. There's a poem called California. Just before the season of fog in the great Central Valley, I will put on my gray coat one last time and walk out toward Kings Canyon, heading east again, back into the sun I came from in the glory before I was a body. Can it be true that the Tule fog rises from the peat of prehistoric swamps under the vineyards of Visalia? There's already too much vagueness on the horizon, too much I can't see through. But I know the trail leading up to the sequoias. Many have walked this way before me, leaving flip-flops, sunglasses, canteens, skulls, strands of DNA in their passing toward the final restitution. They've returned to their golden state, as we all were once in the sunrise, making our joyous way toward clarity at last, hoofing it out ahead of the impervious fog bank of America. If you don't know, that's just from a little chapbook of his called In These States. That's Terry Hummer, and he's as good as it gets. If you don't know his work, or if you do, go find a Terry Hummer poem. It will make you happy, or distressed, or both. Um, so I'm going to read just a few of my own poems, and then Paige will read some poems, and some of you with us on our little screens will read some poems. The poem of Terry's about California is a poem about being where you are and moving on and paying attention to what's going on. And if we do that right now, it will scare the bejesus out of us. LA, I can't even begin to think what's happening and what's happened in LA, and my heart's with all of you who are there. Gaza today is apparently under a ceasefire. Gaza has been so violently assailed. We are going to be so violently assailed tomorrow, I'm afraid, and on and on and on and on. Here in my little office in Granville, Ohio, nothing melodramatic. I am getting over 2.5 weeks of COVID. Turns out there's a thing called Paxlovid rebound. I'm here to tell you it's a real thing. All that's been happening is I've had that and it has snowed like crazy. So I'm going to read, this is a thing you should never do. I'm going to read a brand new poem that I wrote this week. It's not finished. What the heck? That's why we're here with each other, right? And this is just a little one. My friend Brenda Hillman wrote to me and said, I'm sorry you have COVID, David. Write me a poem about microbes. Oh boy. The microbe doesn't appear in this one, but I got close. This is just a little one. COVID snow. 6 squirrels on the dead ash and the living pear. No, 7. Swish with tails across the branches. They've pulled me from my sick chair to watch them skip, stop, fly back up the snowy trunks, white tails. They bounce on such slender limbs. Now 2 or 3 go high above the barn. Now they're chasing back down. I'm just cold hands, cough, and white dust for a mind. The nurse on the phone this morning calls it brain fog. But no, more like COVID snow. I suppose either way, weather's how we track the changes inside. The snow is done. Squirrels have moved on. No, wait. A few flakes come dusting down where one limb shakes. That's all I've got to show for this week. But here's another snow poem. We're going to be apparently 10 below here Tuesday night. And we're going to be getting more snow. This is a poem, again, about snow and again about illness. It appears in my last book, Whale Fall. The poem's about an event that occurred a long time ago with my daughter. Snow falling. I aim to work all weekend. Her teacups, tiny shoes like 2 thimbles. I had not been well for so long. By the time I'd wired the backyard, the right tools, a book of specs laid out, its diagrams and directions that I could choose among such languages, it had started. First as mist, as cold sheath, less as falling, then floating against the gray sublime of pine,
Yeah, you can make it big or small.
like a coat of what's to come. A crackling among high needles more static than whisper, more shiver than chill. She wanted, who's to say then, it's too cold, little one. I'm not well. No, not just now. A place to play in the yard, a slide, a swing or two. Who can say what passes for health when you've been so long fevered? I cut the A-frames to size, measured, marked off spots to drill for the standing platform. I sawed in a whiteout of sound, but for talking to myself. There were lilacs willing to open their black buds all along the slippery walk. But no, black water in the creek crusted at the banks. It was like singing the days. I tell you, but no. Whatever song there was frost breaking over the grass, wind leaning against dark limbs. I worked the weekend through. I raised the beams and screwed them tight and fixed a slide so she could play, a swing set, a cradle of snow, a thing I made for her. And now, it seems, for you, amid the world's broken and shining things. It's another new one. Um, I wrote this summer and this fall. Changing the season. This is in a hot place. Um, where Paige and I go almost every summer. A place called St. John. I have just retired. This is a poem called Emeriti. It turns out Emeriti has another meaning that will come up in the poem. Emeriti. What did you see then? You on ahead at the swash. Tangle of mangrove along the salt pond side. Blight of sea grape to our right, running to the shore. Beyond. We thought we lived in a peaceful place. I turned to watch two green mallards paddle there on the pond, turned rancid and brown, and had to grab a handrail to steady myself. I was a week out with my new lenses, retirement eyes. It's not what you think. The far waiting night heron, the crooked boardwalk, these were clear. But a few feet away, the sand, the crushed pebbles wavered and blurred. Then there you were. Sand crabs, you whispered, thousands just hatched. The rancor, the deceit, faces of fascists passing as reasonable people, what we went home to. Emerita, the sand crabs, slipping into burrows no bigger than BBs. Portocensis, said our book, who live simply on plankton and detritus in the low swash. Greed or goodness, the sudden rush. I need to see the world for what it is. So post-cataract surgery, I guess. Um, maybe I'll just read one more here because I want to hear from Paige. Um, I'll read another poem about this place where Paige and I go. And I wrote this one also this fall. This is a short one. And it's got two very brief quotations inside it. two phrases from other poets. One of them is Jem Longenbach, and one of them is Stanley Plumley, both of whom I miss. The Bay. How many stories among the stars? The boats come in, the boats go out. Our friend is dying. He writes, he says, more often, yet more sparely. Now to see what wasn't seen before. We stay up all night again to scan the sky from our deck above the bay. How slow the constellations spin. Invincible heroes, unrequited loves, until it seems we've lost all count. Soon we'll go to star, therefore, to start. A cargo freighter pulls across the waters. We can tell from the placement of the lights, the slow procession of it all. And so it's dawn. Did I say invincible? I mean invisible. I'll show you, said Stanley Plummer. I'll show the other thing I've been doing for the past 3 weeks. I am proofing 470 pages of Stanley Plumley's collected poems. I'm the co-editor of a book that's coming out this fall. And I urge you all to pay attention to this fall in August, August 12th. Collected Poems of Stanley Plumley will be coming out on August 12th from W.W. Norton, and it is a masterpiece. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for coming to be with us this afternoon. And I can't wait to hear some of Paige's poems and some of yours. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for those beautiful poems. And I put David's URL for his website in the chat. So if you weren't here to pick that up, I'll try to put it back in later. Now I'll introduce our second feature. Paige Hill Starzinger's second book, Vortex Street, was shortlisted for the Grand Prize in Poetry by the Eric Hoffer Award Committee. Her first book, Vestigial, won the Barrow Street Book Prize, selected by Lynn Emanuel. Both are from Barrow Street Press. Her chapbook, Unshelter, won the Nomi Chapbook Contest, chosen by Mary Jo Bang. Poems are forthcoming or have appeared in the New Yorker, Revel, American Poetry Review, Kenyon Review, Volt, and others. Starzinger was copy director at Evita for almost 20 years and co-authored A Bouquet from the Met put out by Abrams in 1998. I will copy her website and put it in the chat and take it away.
Well, thank you, Robbi. Thank you, David. I thought I'd start with a poem that has a David Lynch aspect to it. And I actually, the filmmaker who passed away this past week or so, I actually didn't realize, Sujata has heard this poem. I actually didn't realize it had a David Lynch element in it until I read the articles that have come out about him. And I realized there was something in Blue Velvet that had lodged in my head. And now I see that there's not only Whitman in it, which you'll hear, but also David Lynch. So it's kind of a funny polar opposites of America, and fits some other things going on politically and so forth. Eclipse. Among low spears of Kentucky bluegrass is an eye, blue iris, and next to the dandelion, an ear, listening to nothing in particular. Lying there detached, peculiar, they were mine. I mean, once upon a time. If I can rhyme, can I not a net in which to gather myself, loop it between long-leafed branches of a long-lost tree? What kind? Maybe the apple of my childhood, rooting outside, linoleum red, the kitchen. My mother lights the pilot. I am not sure where I am today, just crawling under data center information clouds, dodging the sticky parts. Glue traps we caught our mice in during the old days. Scurrying, yes, I am often on all fours, and my olfactory neurons desire oddly the astringent emissions from the air exhausts. But I adhere to the intake chambers more than I'd like to admit. Do I actually live there and only imagine the outside where I don't exist? So many empty spaces, disembodied sensations. I keep telling myself, reach for the bluegrass, springing back no matter how many others, how often I push it down. Journey work of the stars. That's all I remember of the Whitman. I'd like to think there is a shadow copy somewhere, but who's to say? The cry. It had nothing to do with augury. I held the cell phone high into moonlight, playing the cry of a tawny owl. Merlin obliged, but it also had nothing to do with magic. It was data, the magician and app, the recording stored in cobalt and nickel chambers where birds never roost. But I didn't think. I wanted to fill an absence. I called to her 3 times, 4, and then the sweep of outstretched wings, dark figure above me, up into a cypress where she settled and cried. What was I thinking? Who am I to lure a wild thing like prey, mislead her with a stolen song of another, as the hunter does? I did not have a gun. I have a mind that operates like one. I'm going to read 3 poems from Vortex Street, which is from Barrow Street Press, which is a great little press, and they have a journal. They have an annual contest on which I entered. And what's the third thing? They have something else, I forgot. That they have a great, oh, they also have editor's choices. So if you don't win the contest, you can also be chosen by the editors. And one of the longer poems is called Specula, and I'm going to read the beginning part of it and the middle part of it. And it's worth knowing that the title, Specula, is the Latin word for mirror. And it's also an instrument to dilate in a gynecological exam. Specula. To the man pressing the sonogram over my ovary who is saying, it's completely shut down. It is still part of my body. It is alive. It is mine. I want to know, is it velvety if you hold it? Is it ghostly white? Is it fragrant? Does it hum? Magnificent glands, corrugated, grooved, and furrowed. This is where my children would have sprung if you could time lapse back. Alia, meaning dice, as in aleatoric music. Mozart selected a precise sequence of notes based on throwing a handful. Beauties we are, we say beautiful. Estradiol in our vaginas and windswept fires in our veins. And then from the middle of that longer poem, what of need when you want less, when you think you want less, when the self is less you think? Look how my bones, osteoporosis, my pelvis, endometriosis, my ribs, fractious. This is the house, my only home. I own no other. I lease one car. This is my body, the beauty, yes, I abandoned to feed on more expensive tastes. A cage to decorate became a cage to pain. This structure, this cage, if I could build a cage instead. How do you disinherit yourself? Normal faults create space when the ground cracks. But as one tectonic plate forces itself on another, this is a thrust fault. I am full of faults, natural mistakes. They lie until uncovered. And then I've worked on a series of poems about, unborn children. And this was one of the first. And again, it's in Vortex Street. And when I refer to Aix in the end, it's the place, from the place Aix-en-Provence in the south of France. My unborn child says to me, "You are a mouse in a dove's coat." An apron with hands, that's what I didn't want to be, I replied. It's taken you a long time to catch up. But is it a race? Time grew tired waiting. He's sexist. You're binary. I don't think I was strategic. No, you wanted to be free of the past, untethered, to step into a stream like your mother, walk one narrow slice of water after another, mayflies rising, a world constantly changing, shimmering. You felt this was New York. That sounds right. See, I knew you before you saw the stream. I lay inside you when you curled within your mother. I was one of your last 2 eggs. You saw me on the sonogram, remember? I look at my right thumbnail, misshapen from picking at cuticles. I can't see this child now, but for the voice. We come accidentally and try to find our place. I've been hungry before in the south of France, the cypress, the picnics, the boys' lips, simply too animal, unprotected we were, but everything else receded, a blaze of heat pushing outward, filling me. Probably a late period, so I went to his doctor and he recommended a wash, just from the pharmacy, nothing much. Yes, I recall, X comes from Latin for water. You have never been ready. I was pursuing the boy, and then you did not trust your body again. I think it scared me. You worry too much about the past. Stop dwelling there. Where did you get so bossy? I mean, so definitive. I got it from you, dear. So then I have one more from Vortex Street, and it starts a new section. It's a second section after this poem that I just read. And the title is OO, and there are a lot of, I was thinking of a pair of ovaries. I was thinking about OOOH. I was thinking about quite a few different things are kind of in that. Also 00, because they look like zeros. OO. Likely it happened in a different way. It's a story. I can rewrite. It's my story. I can rewrite it. There are things to see clearly. 1, I never went out of my way to have a child. 2, the endometriosis was severe. I lost an ovary, appendix. See, I had choices. Others took them, plural. People can and will adapt. I mean, adopt. Grief is something to revise or to sit with quietly. Try to sit with quietly. Even the quietly is difficult, itchy. See, I'm afraid of something going in my body, afraid of not taking proper care. This is not going well. I'd like to end as soon as possible. Ooplasm is the yolk of the ovum, germinal, nutritive, paired, and the ovaries suspended, tethered by ligaments to the peritoneal cavity. These are facts one can start with. Let's see, I have a couple more. This first one is another recent one, and it's one of the newer unborn child poems. I say to my unborn child, I set a mirror in the forest, tipped against the conifers of cryptomeria, as if it were a tombstone. I could see myself reflected there, even as the seeds fell, like a haunting. You say you hear me, although I didn't give you a name. You say I expected you to arrive, but not in this form. A stanza is a little room, a child's room, you say. Tercet, sestet, couplet. 2 lines running beside each other. I carry you over the emptiness like a shadow. Do you blame me? The ink and imprint of pixels, of neurons leaping synapses, the mirror angled as a type of deflection. I try to compress the world into a slender plane, a surface that can multiply and expand like cypress branches whirling up the peeling flayed trunk, like seed cones opening and closing their intricate clasps. And I'll just read one more. I grew up in Norwich, Vermont. So in Norwich, Vermont, there were 5 seasons. The mud season is the 4th season. And maple comes in here as well. Anybody who's up north, Marion is up north, she'll recognize some of this. As maple trunks thaw, I was pushed out of my mother's body one April, cold and wet, in the 5th season of the year, a measure of frost and mud. It was past the last sap boil, more amber than gold. I was a dial suspended in a chunk of glass like ice, my initials carved into it. Today, I click into a digital video conference. Faces populate, time snags, and pixels sputter, so someone looks like a Francis Bacon portrait, enlarged head leaking over the chest. We share 35% of our DNA with daffodils, 98% with chimps. Our cars burn dinosaur bones, and the oxygen we breathe is an excretion of ancient bacteria. Is it any wonder we romanticize a row of tall pines set against empty sky, the sunset, a family, different sizes and shapes, calling each other as a wind rumbles through them, a song like a cello might make before it was crafted into an instrument? Thank you.
Thank you for those wonderful poems. Thank you both of our features. And I've put both of their web information for you to learn about their books and order them if you don't have them. Thanks again for coming. And there's some people who came after the features started reading. So if they would like to be added to the open mic, I think we're looking at probably one poem each, no more than 5 minutes. So so far on the list, I have David, Wendy, and Consuelo. Would anybody else like to be added to the list?
Me.
Okay. Oh, did I hear a me? Was that you, Marietta?
Yes.
Okay,
Hi, this is Linette. I'd like to be added to the list too, please.
sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, please.
Marion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then we'll get started with David Oliveira.
What was you?
Oh, thank you. My mind is still swimming from the reading, from all of those wonderful, beautiful phrases. This poem is called Beginnings and Ends. And there's an epigraph from William Matthews. There's someone's misery in all we earn. For the sake of argument, sunlight marks the beginning of days which end asleep in the dark. The intervals in between stay awake, trying to figure out one past from another. Sun breaks over earth's tender turns without opinions. Inequities rendered easy to see, impossible to settle. Linking life to a lover invites their whole family, some of whom, without asking, invite other relatives. In no time, the house converts to a menagerie of kin, none of whom show any signs of the lover's graces, nor any sign of moving out soon. All the while, the same sun that first steered lovers together nurses tomatoes next to peppers and milkweed in the garden, and shines on the plum tree with its mourning dove and duets with baby cries. Thinking of beginnings and ends naturally reflects on the course of life, mine in particular. As I've grown older, so has everyone else, an epiphany coming too late to be embarrassing, but in time to sting from the welts of its misery. This morning walked out under a chilled sky. Consider that sky and its comforting blue stillness, or how wind nestles against the scented pines, or how reds and yellows toss across country hillsides. The world offers many moments to call happy, among uncountable others to call something else.
Thank you, David. Our next reader is Wendy.
I think I got this. My camera gonna come on. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Wendy Van Camp, and today I'm going to be reading some of my speculative poetry. And speculative poetry is poetry of a science fiction, science, astropoetry sort of theme. And this poem is called The Last Journey. It's a series of sci-fi-ku, which are science fiction themed haiku poems. And the last segment, As Galaxies Form, was nominated for a Dwarf Star Award and published in the 2022 Dwarf Star Anthology. So here we go, The Last Journey. AI, please show me bright stars engulfed within dark matter halos. Gaze back and forward. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Universal history. Science watches God, a simulation of time, gravity only. As galaxies form within halos of dark matter, the last journey ends. Mira shuts her eyes. Gravity journey over. Aurora arrives. And this poem, of course, was inspired by a supercomputer known as Mira, that's M-I-R-A, her acronym. And she was tasked with basically simulating the entire history of the universe for scientists to study. And what really got me about this article was how the scientists kept referring to her as if she was a real person. And this was before the AI sentience questions started to come up. This was, many years ago. And I just thought it was kind of an ode to her because, of course, her last simulation, afterwards she was shut off and a new computer called Aurora took her place. So in a sense, she died after doing her work. So anyway, that was the inspiration for that poem. And I think I have time for one more set. And this set was published in a magazine called Sci-Fi Kuist. I believe this past year. Let me just look real quick here. Yes, it was in the February issue of 2024. And these were actually poems that were unselected for a renku I was working on with a group of other poets. But I thought they were pretty good. And I guess the editor of Sci-Fi Kuist agreed because she published them. So here we go, a set of 3 sci-fi ku poems. Through rainbow hues, we lift off and pass Luna, Einstein-Rosen Bridge. Within gas giants, as only the south wind moves, the aeronauts fly. Seeking afterglow, thin air outside Martian domes, firework rockets. And that'll be it for now. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Wendy. Interesting concept. Consuelo Marshall, you're next.
Okay. Thank you, Robbi, for doing this, and thank you, David and Paige, for such great readings. This is a epistolary poem, and it's written to someone, and it's not identified. So I guess that's all I'll say. I think you'll figure it out. Okay. Dear Mr. Auto Go Fast, speed addicts, they called us. Me wearing Nike Airs, you aiming oversized tires, dubs, slicks. Road running was a way to fast forward my family. For you too, Mr. Auto Go Fast. A road to delete your booze-infested father. Grip the tiny wheel, press your feet on pedals. For me, how to forget mother talking to herself by loading my lungs with oxygen to the flutter and fantail of wings on my heels. By beating others, we beat ourselves, anointing our bony bodies with sweat. A half century later, I can't surrender black and whites of you. Your arm in a sling, Watkins Glen postcards, your scrawling script skip across them. You sprung for Sammy Hale, Crankshafts Ltd. To engrave my car's crankshaft. To Consuelo with love. It spun, a stalagmite in my engine. Some days I can feel it churning. I imagine the subtle sound of whirling it makes way deep inside that cavern made entirely of the curvature of my ribs.
Thank you, Consuela. Marieta, you're on.
Yes. I have a poem published in Four Feathers Press.
Marieta, a second, you should turn off your video because it's very hard to look at. There's a really bright light and it
Okay.
hurts my eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, entitled Jintishi Poem for the Heaven Strings. A frozen time brings hush and heavy snow to fall over the silver fir, to cherish God and to be snowed up while harmonizing with hymns of faith. No bees to fly on high, forgotten falls. Scenes await absolution, and every bush transforms into a snow devil. Birds' eyes, chirps, and memories in the tree trunk. Love heart. Angels with wings hover nearby, while the forest longs for renewal, yet faces the threat of being felled. This is a time of revivification through suffering and love. The starlight envelopes the silence of the world. Sacred songs touch the core of the heavens, absorption and disappearance. Thank you very much.
Linette? Linette, are you the? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll do two very short pieces. The first one is literally 7 lines. It's called Red Umbrella. Light, dark, shadows embark, calmly calling loved ones. Gallings ascend as love descends. Long snow-trodden journey. Red umbrella, code word. And the second piece is called the cooling aura. I'm so heated, and this feeling only comes when they try to defeat me. I'm ready to blow, ready to throw the car into the ocean because these emotions are inflated and wretched, stimulating these wicked thoughts in my head. Then you came along as my conscience singing a beautiful song, reminding me that I am a star and I don't need to spin that far from my normal self, that I am phenomenally built with stealth. Your cooling aura puts me at rest, saving me from the nightmarish fight with death, telling me not to blow my top, reminding me to be calm and stop. Cease from bickering and seething, leave the angry weeping, refocus me to positive thoughts, and carefully reminding me to cease my wrath. Thank you so much.
Okay, if no one else wants to be on the list, then I will be the last reader on the open, and I've got an ekphrastic poem, but I don't have permission to use the image. You can find it online. After I read it, I'll put the title and the painter. It's called Still Standing, and it's after Ivy and Winslow by David Graham Baker. At first glance, I think she is a teacher drawing on the chalkboard. One finger rests on the crevice where the chalk is kept. The other arm sweeps wide into an arc on the board's murky green surface where transparent moon jellies swarm. Words poorly erased. She drafts a magic circle to protect her, yet her feet are bare, standing in a pool of long dried paint, as in a spotlight. I decide this is an abandoned school, site of a shooting, now her studio, where she can drop the line of her imagination, netting the unexpected, lost voices of 1,000 children and their teachers. She probes a past she doesn't really know, like a scientist who studies creatures making their own cold light in the deepest oceans, dreams and dreams again about this ruined room, its light and shadows. To return, settled dust, compelled to paint it in bright hues, to return and make this place a kind of shrine, left standing to remind us all what has been lost. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to our features, our wonderful features, and our open mic, and I welcome you to come back. Oh, I promise to give you the name of the painting again so you can look at it. It was part of a contest at the Page Gallery in Maine, an ekphrastic challenge, and it did not win. So, in a couple of years ago, I was one of the winners, but this one wasn't. So, I closed it, unfortunately. But the title is Ivy and Winslow. That's the title of the painting. Okay. Well, thank you so much. And this will be, it's on video, so it will be put up at some point in a few days. And you'll be able to share it with others. Thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you again. And please, you're welcome to send your work and reprints or new work to Verse Virtual. The submission guidelines are on the webpage. If you look up Verse Virtual 2025, you should be able to find it, or 2024, either one. Thank you so much.
Robbi,
And I'm
I'll
gonna-
speak up for the whole group and say thank you for the work that you're doing for all of us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.